With M&A transactions getting louder, it can only mean one thing. Protein bar brands are starting to party like it's 2019 again. Anyone remember a similar introductory statement, maybe from a content piece I created this past April? And I'm not going to restate all of the context around why 2019 was such a massive party time for protein bar brands because you can easily connect all those dots by consuming that previous content piece. But I did say something towards the end of it that must be quickly repeated, as it's imperative to decoding this particular introductory statement. And then the final two signals I'm watching within the protein bar space are more focused on the attractiveness of the space and format to build within, and then deal making or liquidity event probabilities or possibilities. For protein bar brands to party like it's 2019 again, we need a deal making environment that provides excitement for these entrepreneurs. Then I began to list out a small collection, maybe two or three each, of upstart dairy and plant based protein bar brands that have grown, scaled, or matured within the ultra competitive marketplace since 2019, and thus could be an attractive potential M&A target soon. And maybe not so surprisingly, it only took less than 4 months before a deal announcement included a protein bar brand that was in that original list. That's because in early August, international private equity firm Cinven announced that it had reached an agreement to become the lead investor in Vitamin Well Group, valuing the brand portfolio that includes Barebell protein bars at around $2.2 billion. But what sparked the inspiration for this content was that about 2 weeks ago, another deal announcement included a protein bar brand from that original list of attractive potential mergers and acquisitions targets. This time, it was 1440 Foods acquiring FITCRUNCH, a protein bar brand that was co founded a dozen years ago by celebrity chef Robert Irvine and the contract manufacturer Bakery Barn. And if 1440 Foods sounds vaguely familiar, the brand portfolio name likely stuck after hearing about it within several of my previous content pieces. When Nestle Health Science acquired the Bountiful Company in May of 2021, it didn't want the sports and active nutrition division. So those leftover brands, still owned by private equity firms KKR and Carlyle Group, which included Pure Protein, Body Fortress, and Metrics, ended up being sold a few months later to another private equity firm called 4x4 Capital, and the portfolio became known as 1440 Foods. But then, about a year ago, in mid December of 2023, Bain Capital acquired a significant stake in 1440 Foods. And within the forward looking strategic content that I did create about 1440 Foods after that major investment, I tossed around a few kind of follow the breadcrumb scenarios that had fun remix of the past elements. Yet it was something that I stated near the end of last year's content that is worth resharing again. What I'm referring to when I say partial playbook usage would be to simply help 1440 Foods in its current form go public in the next 12 to 18 months. If you look at publicly traded comps like Simply Good Foods Company, but also Bellring Brands or even Glambia, they've done well this year in the markets, even when conventional CPG brand portfolios have struggled. But an even more potentially lucrative play for Bain Capital would be to utilize the entire previous nutraceutical international playbook and make further market consolidation moves that still eventually lead to an IPO in the next 12 to 18 months. And I'll concede that taking a full on victory lap for correctly predicting a near term market consolidation move by 1440 Foods would be silly, specifically because in that previous content, those follow the breadcrumb scenarios that had fun remix of the past elements all pointed towards a wild and very unlikely mergers and acquisitions target. But while rebuilding a mini version of the Bountiful Company to package up into an IPO is still technically possible, but again, highly improbable, the acquisition of FitCrunch was the opposite of wild and makes perfect logical sense, especially if your deep domain expertise includes the protein bar market. And that's because you'd understand that the protein bar market, like the entire supplement industry, has mostly a sea of sameness composition. But where the protein bar and functional food space in general varies is that differentiation can be derived from having a unique form factor. Furthermore, if that unique form factor proves popular, a competitive advantage can be created through defensibility if you own or created that manufacturing process. This is the story of FitCrunch because if you remember from what I just said earlier, it was co founded by the contract manufacturer Bakery Barn. And shout out to Sean Parrish, who's a fellow Kent State alum and founded Bakery Barn in 2000. But in 2019, private equity firm Union Capital acquired both a majority stake of Bakery Barn and a significant minority stake in FitCrunch. Over the next 5 years, Union Capital enacted several value creating operational enhancements to both FitCrunch and Bakery Barn, including developing and opening a second fully automated production facility in 2022. And reportedly, these actions helped FitCrunch increase adjusted EBITDA 30x in those 5 years. Moreover, Bakery Barn tripled production capacity and adjusted EBITDA grew over that same 5 year period by approximately 4.5 times. So, as you likely realize, not only did 1440 Foods acquire FitCrunch, but also vertical integration assets with Bakery Barn. This is super helpful across a number of strategic areas from financial to operational, as the core FitCrunch product, being a multi-layered baked process, is much more complex than the typical extrusion or slab bars on the market. And shout out to my buddy Ben Rudman, who expressed his commentary on Twitter and or X, whatever it's called today, that aligned with my take on the deal announcement. Additionally, while the financial details of this transaction were private, he pointed out that the Bakery Barn customer concentration likely kept the EBITDA multiple lower than typical contract manufacturing deals in the protein bar space. But this isn't the only major operational investment by 1440 Foods within the last 6 months. In May, 1440 Foods announced that it would be moving its main manufacturing operations to Jeffersonville, Indiana. The press release stated that 1440 Foods would invest $60 million to renovate a 200,000 square foot facility that was previously home of Enjoy Life Foods, a division of Mondelez International. And while I'm not certain how this more recent acquisition could affect that strategic planning, 1440 Foods originally stated they expect to begin production in that Indiana facility next year. But beyond extracting value from the product complexity or uniqueness and Bakery Barn's vertical integration aspect, 1440 Foods acquired FitCrunch because it's highly complementary to the existing brand portfolio of Pure Protein, Metrics, and Body Fortress. Additionally, this deepens the 1440 Foods concentration into the active nutrition subsegment of convenient nutrition bars that has shown strong growth of late compared to the general grocery category. Finally, this also became a sort of acqui-hire value add, as the FitCrunch CEO was named the CEO of the entire 1440 Foods brand portfolio. So then, what's the near-term outlook for 1440 Foods, and do I still think the ship is pointed towards an eventual IPO? The strategic vision for 1440 Foods is built on 4 pillars: strong brands, a complete product portfolio, deep retailer relationships, and efficient operations. In the last year, new, and I'd consider them upgraded, visual identities rolled out for Pure Protein and Body Fortress. Additionally, Metrics has attempted to freshen up its brand strategy, leveraging a partnership with John Cena and leaning into college athletics nil endorsements. As for the complete product portfolio, I'll be honest and say that I don't have enough context around that to understand if FitCrunch filled the remaining gaps or if they will need to lean more heavily into R&D and or mergers and acquisitions. If we think about the convenient nutrition product landscape, you traditionally have RTD beverages, ready to mix powders, ready to eat bars, and then also snacks, whether that's sweet or salty. The current product portfolio in terms of market share would be light in everything outside of protein bars. With Bain Capital driving a great deal of the capital allocation decisions, my assumption is that materially increasing market share within those convenient nutrition format gaps would be most likely filled through further acquisitions. And then with deep retailer relationships, I'm not saying that 1440 Foods doesn't have them, but it oftentimes is connected to market share within categories. So if you wanted to know who really has strong multi-year partnerships with retailers and is driving decision-making around building additional space and more focus on convenient nutrition category, that would be Premier Protein, which is owned by Bellring Brands, and Quest Nutrition, which is owned by Simply Good Foods Company. And then finally, we already talked enough earlier about the investments made by 1440 Foods that's focused on operational efficiency. So, do I believe that 1440 Foods is still pointed towards an eventual IPO? Yes and no. 1440 Foods is absolutely getting packaged into a large liquidity event for Bain Capital, but I'm not certain if it will be through the public markets unless there is a more sizable M&A transaction ahead. While I'm not fully certain the revenue at 1440 Foods, there were some public comments about retail sales last year totaling about $500 million before the FitCrunch deal. But with a $60 million capex investment in that manufacturing facility, it makes me think revenue is higher than my original assumption. Regardless, it still feels a bit light for an IPO event that meets the excitement appetite for Bain Capital, but also a bit sizable for a strategic investor. That is, unless the protein bar party starts getting even more rowdy than in 2019. But I hope you enjoyed the first principles thinking that went into my latest YouTube video. If you did, can you do me a favor by hitting that like button? That quick and free action helps YouTube know my content is worth spreading to more people. Also, we're getting really close to reaching my next subscriber goal, and it would be great if you join me on this journey. But to do that, we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 3/4 of you that are watching this video right now are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, and that hurts my feelings. Regardless, I want to thank you for giving me some of your attention and time, and I'll see you on the next one.